हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे सीमस हेनी की पोम डिगिंग के बारे में। पोएट के बारे में हम पहले ही एक वीडियो में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, जिसका लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में है। चलिए आज पोम के बारे में डिस्कस करते हैं। पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं उसके कुछ की फीचर्स। डिगिंग contrasts the speaker's daydreaming with his ancestors, hard work, pondering his own path while trying to write. Poem is autobiographical in nature. The speaker, presumably Heaney, is sitting at his writing desk, preparing to write, when he hears his father working in the garden outside. This conjures memories of the speaker as a young boy, listening and watching as his father digs in the potato garden. The speaker marvels at how well his father digs, which conjures an even older memory of his grandfather, his father's father, completing the arduous task of digging through peat moss. Towards the end of the poem, the speaker writes as though he can smell the potatoes from the garden and the peat moss his grandfather has dug. He confesses that he does not have a spade like the two generations before him, but he does have a pen which he will use to dig. The poem consists of 8 stanzas of varying length. There is no set rhyme scheme, though some of the lines do rhyme. Stanza 1. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests snug as a gun. The first stanza contains only 2 lines. The speaker is focusing on the pen in his hand. Henny utilizes a simile, telling the reader the pen rests snug as a gun. The reference to a gun is no coincidence. Henny expects the reader to infer that the pen is his instrument, his weapon. The idea will repeat itself in the last stanza of the poem. The word snug also suggests that it would have been easy for Henry to choose path of violence and that poetry was actually the harder decision. Stanza 2. Under my window, a clean rasping sound. When the spade sinks into gravelly ground, my father digging, I look down. In the second stanza, the speaker hears the sound of his father's garden spade sinking into gravelly ground. He gazes down at his father while he works in the garden. There is no punctuation at the end of the last line of in stanza 2. The thought is continued into the stanza. The spade also functions as the third tool mentioned in the poem opening line after the pen and the gun. This is the significant as the tree can be interpreted as representing three stereotypes of Irish life. The spade represents rural Irish farming, the pen represents the rich poetic tradition, and the gun represents his history of rebellion and yearning for freedom from English rule. This allows the poem to take on a wider symbolic significance by suggesting that any speaker is choosing what kind of country he wishes to live in, not merely what he wants to do for work. Stanza 3 and 4. Stanza 3. Till his straining rump among the flower beds, Pen's low comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm, through potato drills where he was digging. The poet uses a flashback quite cleverly in this stanza. The speaker is suddenly transported to 20 years ago, watching his father complete the same task. Stanza 4. The coarse boot nestled on the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep, to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. The stanza is rich in description as the speaker paints the image of his father digging through the potato beds. Stanza 5. By God, the old man could handle a spade just like his old man. The fifth stanza is comprised of just 2 simple lines as the speaker marvels at his father. The reader is then transported even further through time as the speaker then conjures images of his grandfather performing a similar task. Stanza 6. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nickling and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf digging. The lines contained in the sixth stanza are the longest in the poem, and the reader gets a glimpse into the setting of the poem. In Ireland, peat moss has been used as an alternative to coal. Cutting turf is an incredibly grueling task, and the fact that Henry claims his grandfather could cut more than any other man signifies not only the physical strength of his grandfather, but Henry's own admiration for the hard work his grandfather was able to do by himself. He then shares an anecdote with his reader as he describes encountering his grandfather out on a bog one day. The speaker describes a day when he brought a bottle of milk to his grandfather. Henry's grandfather barely stops his work, quickly drinking the milk and then returning to digging and cutting. Stanza 7. The cool smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge. Through living roots awaken in my head, but I have no spade to follow men like them. The seventh stanza returns the reader to the present day. As the speaker sits at his writing desk, the memories are so vivid and alive in the speaker that he can actually smell the freshly dug potatoes and the soggy peat. He can hear the sound the peat made as it was cut. The speaker realizes that unlike his father and grandfather, he has no spade to follow his footsteps. Stanza 8. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I will dig with it. What it does have, however, is revealed in the eighth and final stanza, which contains only three lines. Much is contained in these three simple lines. First, Henry uses repetitions as once again he describes holding his pen with his finger and thumb. Henry's diction here is also curious as he uses the word squat to describe his instrument. While it can describe the physical appearance of the pen itself, Henry could also be showing the connection between himself and his father and grandfather, both of whom would have to squat in order to properly dig for the potatoes and peat moss. The last line, I will dig with it, signifies that while Henry realizes his instrument is different from previous generations, he is still completing an arduous task. While his father and grandfather dug for potatoes and moss, he is digging for the right word, constantly attempting to create sustenance through his words. Poetic devices. Imagery. Between my finger and my thumb, the coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft. Between my finger and my thumb, assonance. The squat pen rests snug as a gun, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving swords. Simile. The squat pen rests snug as a gun, just like his old man. But I have no spade to follow men like them. Alliteration gravely ground. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep. Down and down, off soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge. Themes. The importance of honoring tradition. Perhaps the central theme in digging relates to the importance of honoring tradition. In the speaker's case, it is the family tradition of physical labor that requires honor and respect. This tradition is explicitly male, as the speaker indicates through his focus on his father and grandfather, both of whom worked directly on the land. The speaker feels a need to honor this tradition, even as he himself departs from it, choosing the path of a poet. It is for this reason that he has penned this poem in which he recalls in evocative detail the sights and sounds of his forebearers' efforts. An air of respect saturates the speaker's descriptions, and he makes his ears explicit when he declares, midway through the poem, by God, the old man could handle a spade just like his old man. Although the speaker won't dig with a spade, he concludes the poem by declaring that he will dig with his own preferred implement, the pen, which he can use to achieve a symbolic excavation of his own thoughts and memories, the pleasure of physical labor. Though working the land is hard, the speaker of digging represents physical labor as having distinct pleasures. One may One way he communicates the pleasures of labor is through his use of sound. Flexing his gifts as a poet, the speaker uses literary devices such as alliteration and onomatopoeia to enrich his language. These devices yield verses that's pleasurable for speaker and listener alike. Unlike my window, a clean, rasping sound. When the spade sinks into gravelly ground, my father digging. In just three lines, the speaker incorporates several instances of S, SP, and G and GR sounds, all of which help to recreate the clean rasping sound of the spade slicing into soil. Despite evoking certain pleasurable aspects of physical labor, the speaker doesn't downplay the great demands labor makes on the body. He depicts his father as stooping over potato drills. Line 8 later he indicates the unrelenting work required for his grandfather to get to the high quality peat. Lines 22 to 24 having swords over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf. But with hard work also comes the deep satisfaction of rest, as the speaker suggests when he recalls how, as a child, he brought a bottle of cold milk for his grandfather to drink. The speaker certainly doesn't idolize labor, but he does recognize its distinctive pleasures. Writing as a form of labor. The speaker belongs to a family where the men traditionally make a livelihood through physical labor. By contrast, the speaker asserts that he will pursue a different livelihood writing. Crucially, the speaker frames writing as an intellectual form of labor, one that, though clearly different from farming potatoes or cutting peat, nonetheless requires a certain kind of digging. Whereas his forebearers used the spade to dig into the physical soil of the earth, the speaker will use his pen to dig into the figurative soil of his own thoughts and memories. The speaker makes this claim explicitly at the poem's conclusion, but he also makes it implicitly through careful control of language and form. For instance, consider the speaker's intentional use of rhyme as well as the various literary devices he deploys to enrich his poetic language, including alliteration and onomatopoeia. In this way, the speaker indirectly compares the craft of verse to the effort of working the land, but he seems to insist are forms of labor. थैंक यू। आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको पसंद आई। कैसी लगी हमें कमेंट करके बताएं, और हमें ये भी कमेंट करके बताएं कि आप आने वाली वीडियोस किस टॉपिक पर देखना चाहते हैं। अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माई चैनल। मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे। थैंक यू।